Welcome back to The Juggle is Real. I'm Andryanna, and I'm so glad you joined me for this one. We are, talking about something that might sound a little scary, a little morbid at first, but stick with me because I've just gone through it, and this is one of the most freeing concepts I've come across in a long time. And yes, you saw the title. It's called Swedish Death Cleaning. But before you click away and before you think, okay, that this is too depressing, I'm not in. Just, I promise you it's not. I feel like this is one of the most practical and probably a pretty meaningful chat that we're going to have. And this is a great time of year. We're still like end of spring, summer starting. We want to feel free. We want to let go. Maybe we want to clear some of that clutter. Maybe your garage has seen better days, and maybe you can barely see the light of day when you open up the garage because it's filled with so much stuff. And I know I've just been through this. If you've been listening for a while, that I moved in the fall. And so we did a big purge, and we, had to go through all the things and pack all the things. And when I started that process, I was like, okay, we are not packing up junk, bringing crap to our new house. Like, we are doing the big purge, and, great intentions, and we did a good job. But we somehow still ended up with an entire storage room filled to the brim. And then that storage room is soon to become a bedroom. So just recently, I had to go through this process again, and I had to go through my garage. And I think this is an ongoing thing. And as this episode comes out, I am also sharing a TV segment on the Canadian breakfast television about the same topic. And first of all, can we just give a shout out to Dina and Tim, Noah, everyone at BT? Such an amazing breakfast show all across Canada. Definitely check it out. The link will be in the notes for this episode. But you get about 5-6 minutes. So we can scratch the surface. We can give some great key points. But for today's episode, we can go a little deeper because I feel like the reason why this idea is resonating, has nothing to do with death, but it has so much to do with how so many of us are feeling. We are feeling overwhelmed. We were just talking about the June mental overload, how some of us, AKA me, have June brain. And, we are drowning in decisions, or drowning in stuff. It is not just physical, it's mental, it's emotional, all of the responsibilities and that weight of managing a household and a life. And so this is really, really why I'm here, because somewhere between old sports equipment and the mystery cords that somehow pile up, but you don't want to get rid of them. And then there's forgotten toys and random bins and things you probably don't even remember you have. I think we can find ourselves thinking, why? Why do we have so much stuff? And why are we holding on to it? Because what's really about today's conversation is, and really what Swedish Death Cleaning is talking about why clutter can feel so heavy, and the connection between stuff and the mental load, and why we're holding on to things long after they have stopped serving us. And most importantly, how we can begin this process of letting go, actually purging, and gradually, and then over time, maintaining how this concept can be a part of our lives. So we're heading into summer. We want to feel that great feeling. We want to be able to walk through, put our kids' bikes in the garage, or have a space, a shelf that's not just absolutely crammed. So if this sounds like you, if you want in on Swedish Death Cleaning, let's dive right in.
This is the Juggle is Real podcast. I hope you feel seen, that you realize your worth, lighten your load, and prioritize your own needs. As we hear from leading experts and well-known faces in the wellness, entrepreneurship, education, and motherhood space, I hope you gain insights, proven practices, and learn actionable tools to help you enjoy the juggle of work, family, and everything in between with a little less stress and a lot more ease, joy, and fun. Most of all, I hope you find what you need to simplify, streamline, and supercharge your own journey of better balance and self-love. Are you with me? Let's get started.
Okay, so let's get this part out of the way and let's talk about what is Swedish death cleaning. Because when I came across it last fall, I was like, okay, this sounds interesting. Maybe a little morbid, but so freeing. And Swedish death cleaning, it comes from the Swedish term "dostädning," and that means death clean. And it was popularized by an author from Sweden, Swedish author Margareta Magnusson, and she wrote the book "The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning." So that's kind of how it's gotten a rise in North America. And it's a very simple concept. It's basically just the practice of over time gradually decluttering and simplifying your life so that your loved ones are not left with the burden of having to sort through mountains and piles of belongings and stuff someday after you're gone. And yes, that part is a little sad, but it's really about reducing what someone has to manage after you're gone. And when you think about it, if you think about maybe you've gone through this process, maybe, grandparents or family members or, even parents, you understand how much time and energy and for those who are grieving, like it's really a huge undertaking. And so if we can sort of always have this little notion in the back of our heads, it's not going to guide every single decision, but like there's some things that we're keeping and we're going to go through it, but it's like, do I need someone I love? Do I want one of my kids to have to go through this box of absolute crap that I'm keeping for literally no reason? So I think the reason why this has taken off, you know, on this side of the world and in North America, because people don't want to have to wait until they are, feeling more elderly, because we are feeling overwhelmed right now. And while this concept is kind of like as you're into your 50s and 60s and 70s, getting rid of the things gradually, people who are in our 40s, 30s, maybe even 20s. Like we are managing more stuff now than ever before. We're buying more, we are storing more, our houses are getting bigger. And, like there's a lot of parents are more involved in their kids' lives. So maybe we're keeping more of their belongings. There could be more sentimental items. Our hobbies, technology is changing so rapidly that we're constantly changing that. There's paper and clutter, and we feel it. And like even just going through and thinking about all these places, like I'm already like, I need a breath. We feel it because that clutter, it's not just visual. It's not like you could just kind of like shove it into a closet and like barely close the door and just walk away. It's mental as well. And so there is a cost. There is a very real cost to keeping too much stuff. And there's research that has shown repeatedly that there is a relationship between clutter and stress. And there's a well known study from UCLA Center on Everyday Lives of Families that found women who described their homes as cluttered, they had higher levels of cortisol throughout the day. And cortisol tells us that that's the stress hormone, right? That tells us that at any given time, our body is in a stress response. And so like pretty simply put, this clutter, this crap can really create a chronic low level stress response. And we do know that chronic stress is taking over in many different aspects of our lives. And then there's researchers at Princeton who found that physical clutter, it competes for our attention and it reduces our ability to focus. And this makes so much sense if you think about it. I can remember working for someone, and his desk was just mountains and piles and folders and papers. And I have no idea how he managed to get things done. He's definitely had support, but I can remember coming back to my desk and just being like, okay, we need to declutter. We need clean surfaces here in order to be able to think and be creative and focus and do things. And I can tell you that there's usually like a counter pile that happens in the kitchen or on a table in my house. And, you start off with the cleanness and you're like, okay, I'm not letting it happen again. I will not let the pile start again. And then slowly but surely, the flyer comes in or like a school sheet or like the bills, there's envelopes, there's a card. And then all of a sudden the pile's back. And when I see the pile, it just really grates on my last nerve and it, it makes me feel legitimately stressed. And so every item in our home, it really does require something from us, right? Regardless of what it is, like we need to give it our attention. We have to clean and dust it. We have to store it. We have to maintain it. There's decision making in that. And with that, there's a lot of energy. And so we often think that the stuff and the clutter is about space. Like, okay, so I just need, another storage room. Let's get a shed. Let's get some bins. But it's really also about bandwidth because every new bin, every new shelf, every new space that you are dedicating to stuff is like opening another binder, another page, another tab on your computer. And then eventually like there's so much, there's only so many tabs and then they're all open and the whole system's going to slow us down. And yes, we're talking about June brain right now too, and the whole decision fatigue part. And so we're feeling this overwhelm because, you know, it's not necessarily you got the one junk drawer, but it's the cumulative effect of managing thousands of things and then trying to look for them and trying to remember what you have and then totally forgetting and then knowing, okay, yeah, I'm going to get to it. I'm going to get to it. And so I'm going to go through some of these pitfalls. I think we can resonate with them all. I know I certainly do. And for me, when I went through this process of moving, first of all, our family of five, and then also um, taking those things because you may have gone through this process as well, or think to the last time you had to do a move. It's like you start off great intentions. You're gonna everything's gonna be organized and labeled and this, that, and the other thing, and then you get closer to it, and you're like, you know what? I have no more energy for this. Like, shove it in a box. I don't care where it goes. Just like put it on the trailer. Let's get it to the place. And so we ended up with a full storage room of stuff. And a lot of these things end up happening because of a few pitfalls. So these are the things that I have learned. So let's talk about a few of these pitfalls, a few of these reasons why we might be holding on to things when we don't necessarily need them, or why we might end up getting more of that clutter. The first one I want to talk about is guilt. Okay, because we are often storing guilt, not just stuff. And this might be one of the biggest lessons I've learned because a lot of what we keep, it has very little to do with how useful it is. A lot of it has to do with emotion. And oftentimes the emotion is feeling guilty. Like you received a gift, you never really liked it, but you feel bad, you don't want to give it up, or you paid a lot of money for something, that expensive thing, you barely used it, but you just remember what that price tag was and you're like, "Oh, I can't part with it. Can't part with it." Or there's like that kitchen gadget you swore you're going to use it is going to change your whole meal prep system, and yet you open up your drawer and you're reminded every day of like as seen on TV, or you're at the grocery store and you saw this, or you clicked something, there was like some sort of Amazon targeted ad that you're like, okay, yeah, we need this, and you're not using it. A hobby, maybe something that you used to love, but you're not doing it anymore, or a hobby you wanted to start. And so you're feeling guilty because you haven't actually started it or carried through, or you're not doing it anymore. The clothes, the jeans, I think everyone has a pair of jeans that they have not fit into since like before having children, but you're thinking maybe someday, or an item that someone gave us that we just feel bad. We don't want to get rid of we don't want to get rid of it. And so we tell ourselves, like, what if I do need it someday? Or I paid good money, or, maybe I will, maybe someday, maybe I'm going to get back into that. But what I will say out of experience and seeing what the research is showing, keeping something out of guilt does not suddenly make it useful or meaningful. It just means that you are continuing to manage it. And often we're not storing possessions, we're storing guilt. And so that's a whole other thing. Okay. We have to learn to drop the guilt. Okay. So that's the first little roadblock, I would say. The second one is like really that our stuff is tied to our identity, and the stuff is tied to who we used to be. And so this is another category that where we can feel stuck and we can end up with a lot of extra things that we don't need anymore. That identity one is a big one. Maybe it's the bridesmaid dress. Maybe it is your wedding dress. Like my wedding dress had 100 yards of tulle. I didn't keep my wedding dress, but like, it took up so much room and we were living in a small space at the time. Like it was the whole closet, but some of us were keeping these things, right? They're tied to our identity. The bridesmaid dress, the jeans, maybe there's some type of like workout equipment. I know many people, you got the treadmill and you just hanging clothes off of it. It is a very expensive drying rack. I can tell you my parents, um, maybe not today, but for the longest time, like they had downhill skis from the early 80s that they had not used since like the mid 80s. And I'm talking like, I know a couple years ago, they still had these skis in their shed, right? Sitting untouched for decades. And so there could be all sorts of things, there could be like mountains of craft supplies from that phase when we were scrapbooking, and then you had kids and you're like, I don't have time to scrapbook. Like I barely have time to print a photo. So the reality of all this is that many of these items, they represent versions of ourselves. It's tied to who we were, seasons of our lives, and maybe like really fond and special memories. And so letting go of these things can feel really emotional. Not because we need the item, but we're kind of just like, when we are parting with these things, we're acknowledging that this season has ended, this part of our lives is over. And that's why decluttering can feel surprisingly emotional, because we're not just sorting through stuff. Like these are our belongings, these are pieces of our lives, our story, and it can really just tug on your heartstrings. And I think the hardest category, and tell me if you like nod your head, I won't see it, but like I feel like this is a big one for most of us. It's our kids' stuff, and if you're a parent, it's going to hit home. You want to keep the artwork and it's so cute. And especially when they were little, and the school project that you remember they worked so hard on, or there's baby clothes, tiny little shoes, or maybe cards from their past birthday parties from grandparents or family members, their report cards, although those are digital for us now. One less thing for us, but like something they drew. I can tell you I've got mountains of sports jerseys, the first little hockey jersey and their soccer jerseys and all these little small tiny baseball pants. And I think the mistake that many of us makes is thinking that we really only have two choices. We got to keep it all, every single little thing, or we got to throw everything away. And there really is a middle ground. It's not black or white. Okay. So we will get into some of this Swedish death cleaning stuff, but can we start by just saying, let's do like one bin, like one memory bin per child, because I can tell you, like, I don't necessarily want every last little thing that I ever did as a kid. I don't have room for it. And yes, it's cute to see some things. It's great to look at photos. It's amazing to look at a past yearbook, or like those things are awesome. But again, I don't need 72 boxes of my entire childhood. So if we can keep one memory bin per child, have a keepsake box of those treasured items, and then can we actually utilize, can we frame a few of our favorite pieces of our kids' artwork? My mom did this for us last summer and it was so special. I brought it to breakfast television to show, like, my son painted this. It was on a summer trip we took as a family. He painted it like while we were on the trip, of a memory during that week. And now it's in a frame and we look at it and it's so cute. He was little. It was like a little fishing photo. So cute, because we really have to create limits with stuff like this, with that sentimental stuff. And when we can create intentional limits, we're not doing the all or nothing approach. We can really like allow for the memories to live within us and to be able to pass on some of those really meaningful pieces. Okay. So the goal is not to erase the memories. The goal is just to intentionally choose what's going to matter, and what's really going to be carried and passed along after us. And like, not giving 72 bins of construction paper projects to our kids. No one wants that. You don't want it. I don't want it. And I don't want my kids to have to deal with it either. And I think they're going to appreciate more like one really thoughtfully curated box that might have a few things from every year, versus like the mountains of stuff that is not in good shape, that's just in boxes and they're going to have to dig through it someday. So The final thing that I will say about these pitfalls and these roadblocks that can cause us to end up with way more stuff than we want or need is sort of the indecision. Okay, so this might be one of the biggest takeaways of the entire episode. Delayed decisions become permanent clutter. And so I will say this again, delayed decisions end up becoming that permanent clutter that drives you nuts, right? When you might be tired and you're gonna be like, you're gonna say, I'll deal with it later. I'll go through it another day. I'm gonna decide on the weekend or next weekend, or I promise I'm gonna clear my schedule. And it doesn't really happen. The problem with that is that it rarely arrives, and no one wants to clear their entire weekend so that they can look through piles of papers. Because before you know it, the little pile, it becomes a big pile. And then you shove it in a closet, and then you throw it in a box, and then you get in a bin, and then it's a whole problem. Okay. The single box becomes an entire room just because of the indecision. You're not quite sure what to do with it in the moment, so you just choose to keep it. But I will say a little bit of action, tiny bit of momentum matters more than like having a perfect system. You don't have to have a perfect plan. You just need a decision. And then that one decision, it's going to create another. You don't need to keep every single flyer just in case you're going to find a great deal, because that's just going to cause the pile to begin again. And if you don't have time to look through the flyers today, then or this week, you got to get rid of it, because that one decision leads to another and another and another. So I think I rest my case. There are some of these pitfalls. We might feel guilt. We might be feeling, pretty sentimental about who we used to be, or, our kids are getting older and we want to keep it all, or we might just be stuck in that indecision loop. But I think there's a place that we can start without getting overwhelmed. And the one thing that I do love about Swedish Death Cleaning is that it encourages us to start with the easiest category first. Okay, so we're not going straight for the gut punch, for those sentimental items. It's not going to be the emotional stuff. You don't have to go right to the baby clothes or the memory bin. When it comes to Swedish Death Cleaning, again, we're trying to gradually declutter. We're trying to build momentum, and we're trying to make it easy on ourselves because we do have so much else going. It's not like we can just dedicate weeks to doing this process. So we can start with things that have the least emotion to us, and it's going to be different depending on who you are and what you're emotionally tied to. But I think we can all begin, and collectively, whether that's starting in your garage, looking in your closet, going into your kitchen, looking in your toiletries. I know a lot of women who have a ton of beauty supplies and toiletries that are like, what are you doing with that, girl? What? Come on, babe. Come on. Come on. We don't need that many lotions and potions. All right. So you're going to start with whatever category is least emotional for you, and you're going to look to things that are broken. Okay, that's a very clear, obvious. We're gonna be able to get to it right away because, bam, it's broken. Like, we're not keeping broken things. Okay, expired things. Okay, so if you have like a bottle of sunscreen that expired, in 1992. Okay, back of your fridge, you might have some Italian salad dressing that you haven't used in 3 years. These types of things, right? If you have duplicates, triplicates. When we moved into our house, we had, I would say, a good 16 bug swatters. I never owned a fly swatter in my entire life. We move in, very kind of the people before us to leave us with these things. But no, I don't need 16 of them. Like, we'll save two, three tops. Do we need maybe five, one for each person in our house? Well, you know what I mean? So we can start getting rid of these unused household items. You can get rid of the cords. You don't even have that type of a phone anymore. It does not even use a cord. Chances are it's not coming back around. Okay. And then you're going to move and build that momentum. Okay. With the unused household things, maybe there's some seasonal overflow. Often, we're keeping things because it's seasonal. We're getting into summer again, and maybe you are replacing some of the things, beach towels. Okay, it's great to have a good supply of beach towels, but maybe you saw there was a good sale at Costco, and so you picked up a few more. Well, now let's see. What are the old battered and stained and torn up ones that you saved from 16 summers ago? Well, we're going to purge those. You can donate them, give them to an animal shelter, give it to somewhere, or sometimes they just got to go. girl, they just got to go. And so we start there, we build a little bit of momentum, and then we move on to the more emotional categories later. And so those small wins, they matter. They're awesome. They're great. Okay. And I also just want to say, too, when we are starting this process, for someone who has perfectionistic tendencies, for people who, might be high achieving, you don't have to win. Okay. There's no trophy for being the best at decluttering. Okay. This is personal, but what are the barriers to entry? So for someone like me, my brain goes to, okay, but I need to go out and buy all matching bins. I need them to be certain sizes. I'm going to need to get special shelves installed. Otherwise, why should I even start if I don't have the perfect system? Or, okay, what's the best label maker? And then I'm going to get down a rabbit hole of researching label makers. And then it's like, analysis paralysis. We're not getting anywhere. So what I like to say and what I shared on BT is like you get a bin. Okay. Any bin will do. And yes, you might have to go grab a couple, buy a couple, but get what's on sale. Okay. Get what's going to work. You don't need the label maker. I use masking tape. I use hockey tape. Okay. White hockey tape. And I'm writing it with a Sharpie. What's in that bin? That's the items that you're going to keep. You can have a few bins. The items you're donating, clear plastic bags. And then if you are going to those big box stores, the trays, the Costco trays, those cardboard trays work amazing because you can add items and it's perfect for carrying out of the house, putting it in your trunk. The clear plastic bags are beautiful, especially for clothes that you're donating because you know what's in it. It's not accidentally going to get thrown in the trash. And then for the items that you can discard, and there will be items that are ready for the trash, my friend, you can get good old fashioned garbage bag for those. Okay. So it's a pretty simple system. Okay. We don't need to be perfect to start. Um, and and when we're going through this process, you might be like, well, okay, I did pay a lot of money for it. Maybe I'm going to try to sell it. Where's the marketplace or where's the Kijiji or where's the Craigslist? And I'm going to donate it. So let's talk about some of these things, okay? Um, some of us get stuck because we want to sell these items. We think marketplace, maybe I can sell it pile. But sometimes that's great. Sometimes it makes absolute sense. When we moved into our new house, there were some appliances that we did not need. I sold one, sold two, gave some away. Maybe there's furniture. Maybe there is like barely used sports equipment that your kid grew out of within the season. And you do think that, you can pass it along and you can sell it. Tools or I used to sell some baby gear when we were going through those stages or the higher value items. Okay. But also, please, we do not need to spend 6 months trying to sell something for $14. And then during those 6 months, you're going to get 72 inquiries. You're going to get people trying to lowball you and offer you 50 cents for the $14 item. It's going to take up so much space, so much mental energy, leave you feeling really frustrated. So one question that you need to ask is like, how much is your time worth? Okay. And for me, the stage of life I'm in and how I have felt through the moving and the decluttering process, I felt a lot better about donating items, even if they were relatively valuable, even if I did quote unquote pay a pretty penny for it. I felt so much better giving it to my local infant food bank, giving it to our Jarrett Center or Salvation Army, asking a family member, a friend if they wanted it. That gave me so much more gratitude and just peace of mind versus, okay, I'm going to post this on Facebook and I'm going to field the 700 requests and I'm going to need a photo and I'm going to need a description and I'm going to need to answer the questions and then I'm going to have to meet someone and there's a stranger and do they come to the house and all of that stuff. So ask yourself, what's your time worth? How much is your peace of mind worth? And, is there another option that would be equally gratifying? Okay, because sometimes the best option is simply letting it go. And then there's the other school of thought, maybe you have a number of items that are lower value and you're thinking, okay, I'm going to do a yard sale. We are going to do a yard sale. And if you want to plan a yard sale for this spring, summer, June is actually a great time. It is beautiful. It's a great time, but make it worth your while. And so if you don't have the time and the energy and the ability to put something like this together, you might not just be in the best season of life for it. Okay. So there can be consignment shops. You might be able to sell a few pieces, but letting go might be your best option. And if you are going to do the yard sale, try to bundle the kids' items together, price things to move. Okay. Like you're going to part with it for a couple dollars, even if you paid a lot more for it, and then you're going to advertise locally. You're going to be able to accept, say, e-transfers. And then when all is said and done, if you're going to do the garage sale or the yard sale, maybe collectively your whole street's doing it, or you can get in on something happening in your community. But whatever you do not sell, when that yard sale is over, that stuff is not coming back in your house. Do not bring it back inside. Make a pact with yourself that whatever is left over is going to be donated. And the other part of it is you must get rid of it immediately. Because if you do put it back in the garage, or you do say, okay, fine, I will donate it, and then it's going to sit in a space of your house and collect dust and not be donated for a really long time. Okay, so that's going to be the key. Do not bring it back inside. Okay, so yes, let's move on from that. Because I guess like when all is said and done, we're not really talking about stuff. When push comes to shove, like most of us, most families, we're not drowning in garbage. Like we're not keeping actual garbage in our house. This is not episodes of Hoarders, but we are sitting on those delayed decisions. We are just storing emotional support storage systems in our homes. And the more that I've thought about Swedish death cleaning, the more I realize that it's not really about decluttering. It is about capacity. It's about deciding what deserves your energy and then reducing the things that are draining your energy, reducing the amount of things that you have to manage, because the more stuff you have, the more stuff you have to manage. And then it's about creating more room for your actual life, especially this time of year. Summer is on the horizon. And I don't know about you, but I would just much rather spend my time swimming and, I don't know, sitting around a campfire, going for a walk, I'm going to be at a bunch of fields and watching my kids play sports and just enjoying evenings out on the deck versus constantly looking for things or organizing or being stressed because there's another pile of junk or managing the things that we're not really even using. So as we close this episode out, if there's one thing I hope you take away from today's episode, it is the Swedish death cleaning, dödsdeadening, is not really about death. It's about life. It's not really about stuff. It's about deciding what's going to really be just deserving of your time and your energy and your space and your attention. So as we move into summer, maybe it's not like, okay, what should I organize next? Maybe it's, what am I tired of managing? Because every little item that we keep, it's gonna require something from us. And we do have to keep a lot of things, especially if you're in this busy season with children and growing and all of that sort of stuff. Sometimes the greatest gift that we can give ourselves is not buying more and getting new stuff. It's finally saying goodbye with so much gratitude and so much love and just being like, thank you, thank you, thank you. And now it is time to let go. So I'm so grateful that you listened. Thank you for sticking around for this episode. Are you going to try it? Are you going to ask yourself, do I want to keep managing this? Or more importantly, do I want someone after me, my loved ones, to be burdened with having to manage my own stuff? So if this episode resonated, please share it. Share it with someone who has been talking about needing to clean out their garage or tackle the basement or organize their storage room, or pass it along to someone who just needs to make their life feel a little bit lighter. Because don't we all? The juggle is real, my dear friend, but not everything deserves a permanent place in the juggle. Thank you so much for listening. Can't wait to see you back for the next one. Take good care.